Good morning. We have already seen the percentage method of measuring price elasticity of supply. Today we are going to start with the proportionate method. We'll do the kinds of elasticities and then we'll move to arc elasticity. Okay. Before we start, let me just take a quick recap. I told you that the price elasticity of supply, that is your ES, if we try to derive this by a percentage method, then what was the formula for this? I told you it is percentage change in your quantity supplied upon percentage change in your price, right? And how did we find percentage change in quantity supplied? That was delta Q upon Q into 100, if you remember. And this Q was your initial quantity. And how did we find this percentage change in price? It was delta P upon P into 100, wherein P was the initial price. And how did we find delta Q? Remember that? Delta Q was new quantity minus initial quantity, and delta P was new price minus initial price, right? So this is how we found out. Now, if I just, what I am going to do is I'm going to mark a line like this, right? So basically, this is what we did yesterday, right? Now, if I try to solve this portion, this right hand side portion, what will happen? I'm writing it once again here. This is basically delta Q upon Q into 100, right? This whole is divided by delta P upon P into 100, right? So this 100 goes, right? So it becomes delta Q upon Q upon delta P upon P, right? So if I just simplify it, it's going to become delta Q by delta P into P upon Q, right? So this is also one way of solving, and this is known as your proportionate method, right? This is known as your proportionate method of calculating elasticity of supply. You can note down this formula, delta Q upon delta P into P by Q. You know what is delta Q now? Delta Q is the change in quantity supplied and delta P is the change in price. So delta Q is change in quantity supplied and delta P is your change in price, right? And what about this P and Q? What are these? You can also note that down. Basically, P is your initial price. You can note this down. Initial price and Q is your initial quantity supply. Okay. You can note these. Then we'll do a small question based on this and then we'll proceed to the different kinds of elasticity. Okay. Now let us try a question based on this. Let us say the price of a commodity is rupees 12 per unit. Okay. The price of a commodity is rupees 12 per unit and the quantity supplied is 500 units. That means at this 12 rupee per unit, the quantity supplied is 500 units, right? When its price rises to 15 rupees per unit, when its price rises to rupees 15 per unit, its quantity supplied rises to 650 units. Okay. So there is an increase in price or also there is increase in the quantity supply. Fine. So we have to find out the elasticity of supply. Let us say we have to find out elasticity of supply. So how are we going to find this? Let us do this question. See your original quantity or your initial quantity, whatever you want to say, that is your Q. What was it? How much was it? Q is 500 units. See, this is the initial quantity. So this is 500 units, right? What is the new quantity? We can refer to it as Q1. Is it 650 units? Yes. So this is 650. Now if I talk about, so what is the change in quantity? Change in quantity, new minus initial. So that is your delta Q, and that is 650 minus 500, right? So I'll write 650 minus 500, that is equal to 150 units. Got it? Now what about the price? Let us take a look at the price also. So what was the original or initial price? The original initial price was rupees 12, right? The new price, I'm writing P here. The new price P1, that is equal to rupees 15, right? This is equal to rupees 15. So what is the change in price? New minus initial, right? So it becomes 15 minus 12, and that is equal to 3. Got it? So why have we found this much? So this is delta P. Why did we find all this? Because we know that to calculate elasticity with the help of proportionate method, what do we need? We need delta Q upon delta P into P by Q. So we have delta Q, delta P now. So can we write this in the form of a formula now? Delta Q upon delta P into P by Q. This is what we needed. So we have here 150 upon 3. Okay, delta Q is 150. Delta P was 3 into P. That's your original price. What was your original price? 12. And what was the original quantity? That was 500. Just try and calculate this. What do you get out of this? I'll wait for a moment. You have to calculate 150 upon 3 into 12 upon 500. So once you calculate this, you're going to get 1.20. So your ES is going to be 1.20. You can do it like this, okay? Right? So if you calculate this, it's going to become 1.20. Right? So this is how we use the proportionate method. Will you be able to do such questions now? Yes. We'll be practicing a few more questions later on. Let me first take up the different types of elasticities also, so that once we are calculating, we are also able to, analyze whether the supply is elastic or inelastic or whatever, right? So let us now start with the kinds of elasticities of supply, right? So different types or different kinds of elasticities, you may call that as kinds of elasticities of supply, right? Now, the first kind of elasticity which we are going to take up is perfectly elastic supply. Okay, perfectly elastic supply. You know what is elastic? Something which is very flexible, right? So similar to that, we have perfectly elastic supply. Now, what happens in this? Let us first understand. In this case, there is infinite supply. That means there is no limit. There is infinite supply at a particular price. Infinite supply at a particular price. And the moment there is a change, that means if there is a slight change in price or fall in price or increase in price, whatever, if there is a slight change in price, then the supply is basically, it becomes zero. Supply becomes zero. So in this kind of a situation, we say that the supply is elastic. Now let us be more clear about it. First of all, what did I say? That at a particular price, it is infinite. The moment there is a shift in price, then the supply becomes zero. So basically, what is the situation? We can understand this with the help of a small schedule also. Let us say the price is 30. Okay. And at this given price, the supply is basically, let us say initially it is 100. Then the supplier increases to 200 and then he increases to 300, right? So in this case, if you try plotting this on a graph and you write QS over here and price over here, let us say this is 100, 200 and 300, okay? So this is 100, 200 and 300 and this is the price 30. So at 30, it is 100 also, 200 also, 300 also. So you get this kind of a supply curve, right? Now, what is this kind of a supply curve? Basically, this is representing the perfectly elastic supply. And what is the shape of this? Let us just write it down. You can also note it down. It is a horizontal straight line. What is it? It is a horizontal straight line. This is horizontal, right? Horizontal straight line. And this is parallel to x-axis. It is parallel to x-axis, right? Now, I'll just repeat what I've said and then I'll also show what is the value of elasticity. In this case, you will understand that the value of elasticity is infinity because I've told you that the supply is infinite at a particular price. So you can understand this that at 30 it is 100 also, 200 also, and it is continuing. So it is infinite. We'll also understand this by way of percentage method, but just let us understand what is written here first. So I'm going to repeat. Perfectly elastic supply means that whenever there is infinite supply at a particular price, right? And the supply becomes zero with a slight fall in price or change in price. Okay. So if there is a situation, this kind of a situation, then we say that the supply is perfectly elastic. And in such a case, what you observe is that your ES, the value of ES is infinite, right? Supply curve which you get is a horizontal straight line. It is parallel to x-axis. Okay. Now, if I try to calculate this numerically, so what was the percentage method? You know that the percentage method was percentage change in QS upon percentage change in price, right? So in this kind of a situation, what is happening? The percentage change in price is zero, and maybe the percentage change in QS is whatever. You take 100, 200, whatever. As long as the denominator is zero, the infinity will be the answer, right? So your supply will be perfectly elastic in this case. So numerical also you can vouch this fact, and this way with the help of a schedule also you can say this, right? This is definitely a hypothetical situation, right? Definitely hypothetical situation, imaginary kind of a situation, because at the same price, normally a supplier will not supply a higher quantity unless he has an incentive of earning profits. Okay. For example, some students were saying that in COVID, let us say, the price of the mask was 50 and initially the supply was 100 and then it was 200 because the demand was such and the situation was of a pandemic. So that is an exceptional situation. That's a remote example of perfectly elastic, though all the economists believe that this is a completely hypothetical situation because the supplier usually will not continue his supply at the same price, and that too, he's not going to continue supply as of, he's not going to increase his supply. Okay. So this is the case of perfectly elastic supply, horizontal straight line parallel to x-axis. Got it? Next, we're going to perfectly inelastic supply. Perfectly inelastic supply. Now, what is perfectly inelastic supply? That when a supply basically does not change with price. Okay. So in that situation, what happens is the price will increase. It's going to become 20, 30, 40. But you will observe that your supply in units will remain same. That means irrespective of the price in the market, the supply is not going to change. So in this kind of a situation, the supply curve basically will be how is it going to be? See, let us plot this and understand. Here we have QS and here we have price, right? So the price is increasing 20, 30, 40, right? But the supply is constant at 20. So don't you think this kind of a supply curve will happen here? Right? So this is the perfectly inelastic supply curve. What is happening in this? Supply does not change. Supply does not change with, with change in price. Okay. Supply does not change with change in price. So in that case, we say it is perfectly inelastic. Now, what is the shape of the supply curve which we are getting? We are getting a vertical straight line, right? This is a vertical straight line which you can see in the screen. It is a vertical straight line and this is parallel to which axis? Y axis. This is the y axis. So this line is parallel to y axis. So this is parallel to y axis. Correct? Now, what is the value of this perfectly inelastic supply in this case? Any idea? What is the value? Like in the previous case, we thought it was ES equal to infinity. What is the value of ES going to be in this case? The value of ES in this case is going to be 0. Let us vouch that also. See, percentage change in QS upon percentage change in price. So what do you observe? Is there any percentage change in QS? No, that itself is 0. So 0 upon 10 in our case. So that becomes 0. Okay. So percentage change in quantity supplied upon percentage change in price. So it becomes 0. Got it? Perfectly inelastic supply. When supply does not change with change in price, then supply is said to be perfectly inelastic. Quantity supplied in UNC is remaining same at 20 units, whether the price is 20, 30 or 40, right? So this is also an imaginary situation because usually a supplier would like to increase supply at an increased price. Got it? I hope this much is clear. You can also see this from this graph here. The text also says that if as a result of change in price, the quantity supplied remains unchanged, we see that elasticity of supply is 0 and the good has perfectly elastic supply, ES is equal to 0. Okay. Similarly, we'll have a perfectly elastic supply also here. Wait a second, I'll show you. This is perfectly elastic. See, this is perfectly elastic, right? So we've seen these two types of elasticities now, perfectly elastic and perfectly inelastic. Now we're going to start with the third type of elasticity, and that is known as highly elastic. Okay, we're going to take up this case of highly elastic supply, or you can say relatively elastic supply. Now, in this case, what happens is the price rises, let us say from 10 to 15, and the supply rises from 100 to 200. Okay. So, when there is an increase in the price by 5 rupees, the supplier increases his supply by 100 units. So, what we will observe in this kind of a case is that the percentage change in quantity supplied in this case will be more than the percentage change in price in such a case. Okay, the percentage change in quantity supplied will be more than percentage change in price. Let us try to plot this on a graph for a moment. Okay, this is quantity supplied and this is price. Okay, so in this kind of a situation, let us say the price was 10, now it's become 15. Okay, so let's take a scale of 5. So let us say this was 5, 10, 15, and on this side we have 100 and 200, right? So now this is one point and this is the other point, right? So this change in price is more, it's not as big as the change in quantity supplied. So in this kind of a situation, you will observe that this is the shape of supply curve, okay? And ES will be greater than 1 in this case. Now, why ES will be greater than 1 in this case? Because the percentage change in quantity supplied will be more than the percentage change in price, right? So the numerator becomes larger. When we calculate elasticity, the numerator will become larger and ES will be greater than 1. You can even find it out if you want, right? You can find out by, let's try by proportionate method. So delta Q on Q into P upon delta P. You can also write like this, delta Q upon delta P into P by Q, either ways, right? So what is the change in quantity you can observe is 100, change in price is 5, right? What was the initial price? 10, right? And what was the initial quantity? 100, right? So in this case, you find that the elasticity is 2, which is greater than 1. Okay, delta Q is 100, delta P is 5, then your initial price is 10 and your initial quantity was 100. So we found out that the ES is greater than 1 and that is 2 in this case, right? Now we're going to consider another case wherein we have less elastic supply. Okay. The fourth case which we are going to understand is less elastic supply, right? Now, when is supply said to be less elastic? When the percentage change in quantity supply is basically less than the percentage change in price, right? So in such a case, when this is the situation, when percentage change in QS is less than percentage change in price, then we say it is less elastic. And in such a case, the ES is less than 1, right? So let us take one example. Let us say the price has increased from 10 to 15, but your supply has gone up from 100 to 200, right? So in this case, so as you can see this in this example, when price rose from 10 to 15, the supply rose from 100 to 120. And going by this proportionate formula, you can also use the percentage method if you want. So I just found out delta Q by delta P into P by Q. So you find that the elasticity is 0.4 and which is less than 1. So if you want to understand it in the form of a graph also, you can see this. See, this is your price, which is like from 5, 10, 15. Okay. So I'm writing 10 and 15 here, and this is the price here. And on the x-axis, we have quantity supplied, right? So here we have 100, and very near to it, we'll have 120 because 200 will be somewhere here, right? So 100 was at 10, right? And 120 is at 15. So you get this kind of a curve, right? You'll get this kind of a curve when you join it here. So this is the kind of supply curve you get, and which shows that supply is less elastic. When we say less elastic, it means that it is not moving that much in response to the change in price. That means if I say कि प्राइस में 5 रुपीज का इंक्रीज हुआ, उसके बावजूद सप्लायर ने सिर्फ 20 यूनिट्स की सप्लाई इंक्रीज करी, तो सप्लाई उतनी रिस्पॉन्सिव नहीं है जितनी की आपकी प्राइस रिस्पॉन्सिव है या जितना चेंज प्राइस में हो रहा है, ठीक है? सो इन दिस केस यू सी दैट देयर इज अ लेस इलास्टिसिटी केस। एंड अगर आप इसको थोड़ा सा यहाँ देखेंगे ना, देखिए ये जो गैप है, ठीक है, इस केस में ये गैप बड़ा है एज कंपेयर टू ये क्वांटिटी वाला जो गैप है, ठीक है? जो ये क्वांटिटी वाला जो गैप है, इसको और अगर प्राइस वाले को कंपेयर करेंगे तो ये जो गैप है ये बड़ा है, ठीक है? तो दिस ऑल्सो शोज कि आपका जो डिनोमिनेटर आ रहा है, जो अगर हम परसेंटेज मेथड को करते हैं, परसेंटेज चेंज इन क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड अपॉन परसेंटेज चेंज इन प्राइस, उसमें मतलब डिनोमिनेटर बड़ा है न्यूमरेटर से, तो वैसे भी आंसर आपका 1 से नीचे आएगा और उसमें इलास्टिसिटी लेस देन 1। तो आप कहीं से भी इसको देख सकते हैं, ये हर तरफ से ये सूटेबल रहेगा, ठीक है? एक और केस लेते हैं यूनिटरी इलास्टिक का, फिर सबको एक बार समराइज कर लेंगे, ठीक है? आप इनको साथ साथ नोट भी कर सकते हैं, करना भी चाहिए, बेटर है। शेड्यूल्स और ग्राफ्स तो एटलीस्ट करते जाइए, बाकी चाहे आप समझते जाइए, बट ये एक बार से नहीं होगा, यूल हैव टू वॉच दिस ट्वाइस, ओके? सो वॉच दिस वीडियो ट्वाइस सो एज टू फर्स्ट अंडरस्टैंड एंड देन लर्न इट ऑल्सो। देखिए यूनिटरी इलास्टिक एज द वर्ड यूनिटरी सेइंग 1 से साफ पता चल रहा है, तो यहाँ पर जो परसेंटेज चेंज होगा क्यूएस में वो बराबर होगा प्राइस के, ठीक है? सो दैट विल बी इक्वल टू परसेंटेज चेंज इन प्राइस। इज इट ओके? यानी अगर हम इसमें एग्जांपल ले लेते हैं 10, 15 और 100 और 150 का, राइट? सो दिस इज प्राइस एंड दिस इज सप्लाई, ठीक है? तो इसमें अगर आप अब डेल्टा क्यू और डेल्टा पी वाला फिट करके देखिए, लग रहा है क्या? देखें क्या आता है। डेल्टा क्यू इज 50, 5 and P is 10, right? And what was the original quantity? So वैसे ही देख के लग रहा है, देखो 5 पूरा कट गया है ना, 10 और ये 1 आ गया, ठीक है? सो इन दिस केस व्हाट यू ऑब्जर्व इज ES इज इक्वल टू 1। अब अगर आप इसको ग्राफिकली भी समझोगे, इसका कहने का मतलब क्या है, इसमें आप देखोगे दोनों का जो गैप है, अगर आप प्रॉपरली बनाओगे तो दोनों का जो गैप है वो बिल्कुल बराबर आएगा, जो प्राइस का होगा और जो क्वांटिटी का होगा। ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर अगर हमने लिया 5, 10, 15, राइट, थोड़ा सा 15 नीचे आ गया तो मैं ऊपर लिख रही हूँ, एंड हियर यू हैव 100 एंड we lose 150 here, slightly far from 121. Okay, so in this case what you will observe is कि ये जो गैप है और ये जो गैप है बिल्कुल सेम आएगा, और आपका सप्लाई का जो हमने अभी पहले बनाया था उससे तो ये फ्लैटर आएगा। जो अभी पीछे बनाया था वो आपने देखा थोड़ा सा स्टीप था, ये थोड़ा सा, ये एकदम स्टीप सा है ना, ये थोड़ा उससे फ्लैटर है। ठीक है, तो ये ES1 है, राइट। This is basically the case of unitary elasticity, and percentage change in QS is equal to percentage change in price. ठीक है, दैट मीन्स जितना प्राइस चेंज होगा उतने ही हिसाब से, उतनी ही डिग्री से आपकी सप्लाई भी रिस्पॉन्ड करेगी। ठीक है जी। अब एक छोटी सी चीज यहाँ देखते हैं, आपके जो मॉड्यूल है उसको थोड़ा सा कंसिडर करते हैं। देखिए इसमें सारी चीजें यहाँ लिखी हुई हैं, इसको फटाफट से गो थ्रू कीजिए। ये देखिए, रिलेटिवली लेस इलास्टिक सप्लाई में यहाँ देखेंगे अगर आप, डेल्टा पी जो है वो डेल्टा क्यू से बड़ा होगा। फिर ग्रेटर इलास्टिसिटी में डेल्टा क्यू जो है वो डेल्टा पी से बड़ा है। ठीक है, और यूनिटरी इलास्टिक में दोनों सेम मिलेंगे। ठीक है, रेस्ट आई थिंक इज थ्योरी विच यू कैन ऑल गो थ्रू। Just remember that in relatively less elastic, the supply is not very responsive as compared to the case of highly elastic and unitary elastic. Unitary elastic तो it is perfectly मतलब बिल्कुल परफेक्ट मैच करता है उसके साथ। ठीक है, तो अब ये सारी जो इलास्टिसिटीज हैं यहाँ पर इन्होंने एक साथ लिखी हुई हैं और आपको एक जगह पे दिखा दिया है। इन्होंने ये बोला है कि ये जो देखिए, जो नीचे वाला ये पोर्शन है, this portion here you can see elasticity greater than 1 because the change in quantity is more than the change in price, and यहाँ पर आप देख रहे हैं elasticity less than 1 है because change in price is more as compared to change in quantity. Okay, so यहाँ पर इन्होंने बताया कि कुछ केसेस ऐसे होते हैं जहाँ elasticity is not constant but varies over the supply curve। तो ये वो वाला केस है, इन्होंने ये एग्जाम्पल बताया है आपको। ठीक है, फिगर 33 में इन्होंने यही बताया है, और इसमें ये भी कहा है कि फिगर 33 shows the case of an industry with limited capacity for production for low levels of quantity supplied firms respond substantially to changes in price। तो जब थोड़ी क्वांटिटी सप्लाई हो रही होती है, जब जैसे इनिशियल स्टार्टिंग वाला लेवल है, ये आगे का लेवल होगा ना, मान लो यहाँ पे 50 है, यहाँ 60 है, और ये 100 और ये 120 है, तो आप ये मान के चलो कि जब इनिशियल लोअर लेवल्स का प्रोडक्शन हो रहा है और आपके पास क्योंकि बहुत ज्यादा जो है आप लो लेवल ऑफ क्वांटिटी भी सप्लाई कर रहे हो, और क्योंकि आपके पास लिमिटेड कैपेसिटी है प्रोडक्शन का, आपके पास 4-5 फैक्ट्रीज नहीं है, यू हैव लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज, तो लोअर लेवल में तो आप फटाफट से रिस्पॉन्ड कर देते हो। जैसे ही प्राइस थोड़ा सा बढ़ता है आप अपनी क्वांटिटी को बढ़ा देते हो, और जैसे थोड़ा सा चेंज होता है तो अकॉर्डिंगली आप डिक्रीज कर देते हो। बट जब हम आगे मतलब इसमें जैसे उन्होंने बताया कि व्हेन देयर इज अ स्मॉल राइज फ्रॉम P1 टू P2, तो आप जल्दी से अपनी क्वांटिटी सप्लाई इंक्रीज कर लेते हो क्योंकि वहां पर आपकी आइडियल कैपेसिटी है, और उस वजह से आपका सप्लाई जो है वो ज्यादा इलास्टिक होता है। पर जब वो फुल कैपेसिटी पे पहुंच जाते हैं, एक पर्टिकुलर लेवल पे पहुंच जाते हैं, उसके बाद उनका जो फर्दर इंक्रीज इन प्रोडक्शन होता है वो सिर्फ प्लांट्स की वजह से, मतलब जो आपके फिक्स फैक्टर्स हैं उनको इंक्रीज करने से होगा, उनकी तरफ खर्चा करने से होगा। और उस टाइम अगर आप फर्म को इंक्रीज करने के लिए बोलो अपना आउटपुट, तो दैट वेज मतलब अगर मैं आपको बोलूँ कि सर आप आउटपुट इंक्रीज कीजिए, तो आपको पता है आउटपुट इंक्रीज करने के लिए मुझे एक और बिल्डिंग, एक और फैक्ट्री, एक और प्लांट लगाना पड़ेगा। तो फिर आपको ये श्योरिटी भी तो चाहिए होगी ना कि जो प्राइस मुझे मिलने वाला है ये सब करने के बाद वो सफिशिएंट है। मतलब कि मुझे प्राइस में इंक्रीज दिख रहा है सिर्फ 10% का, और मेरी खुद की कॉस्ट प्लांट बनाने के लिए और इंस्टॉल करने के लिए आ जाएगी 70%, 80% करंट कॉस्ट से ज्यादा, तो फिर मैं क्यों करूंगी? सो द न्यू प्राइस, दिस प्राइस हैज टू बी लार्ज इनफ टू इंड्यूस मी टू इवन प्रोड्यूस दिस मच मोर, बिकॉज इस क्वांटिटी को प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए भी मेरे को बहुत सारी कॉस्ट इनकर करनी पड़ेगी। ठीक है, सो इसीलिए यहाँ पर जो होती है सप्लाई बहुत कम इलास्टिक होती है। Now, this portion measurement of supply elasticity we're going to cover in the next video. And before I cover this supply elasticity by way of arc elasticity and other things, we will first do the determinants, why things are so elastic or why they are inelastic. Okay, so in the next video, I might just skip this portion and go to the next portion directly, and I'll come back to this later. Okay, thank you.